This is Cashing Out on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
It is hour number 3 of Cashing Out right here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network. And what better way to start out hour number 3 than by going out to the Progressive guest line and being joined by this man, as we've got Mike Palm aboard. He does a tremendous job over here at Circa as the VP of Operations. You catch him on so many of our shows. He is the maestro himself. And Mike, it's always great to get you aboard, my friend. Thank you so much.
Greg, thank you for having me on this evening. It's been too long.
It has been too long, and I think that Shedeur Sanders was saying that about his weight in terms of the NFL draft as well. And I just want to get a little bit of your perspective on this, because I'm sure that there are some people that know this. There are some people that don't. The way that the draft is bet here in Nevada is much different than that out there in the northeast part of the country. So take the people through just how you guys booked the draft and just how you guys did in general with regards to everything that happened with what I thought was a very wild and crazy NFL draft this year.
Certainty of the draft this year compared to recent years, and maybe that's because of the lack of a depth of talent. But I went through and we were off quite a bit. In fact, our overall right on the draft last year was more than double what we did this year. We simply put up 21 players. Now each book makes their own choices how they want to handle it and what their offerings are. But we put up 21 players and strictly their position to be chosen. And you move the number, you move the juice as money comes in and the stories come out. And it was our 6th year booking the draft and our 6th year losing on it. But it was a small loser this year. Basically, I think we got unlucky with the trade, Cleveland and Jacksonville, because Cleveland goes down to 5 and takes Mason Graham. He was our biggest liability. We needed him over 5.5, but he gets taken 5th, and I don't think that trade happens. He gets taken in the top 5. So that being said, we made a very small loser. If everything would have went right, we would have made an even smaller winner. So that includes all 5 states we're in, although really it's 4 because Kentucky doesn't allow betting on the draft.
And I do think that it is so interesting in terms of the draft and the way that everything just goes about it as well, because I know you were mentioning it. You guys put up a few props with regards to the state-by-state situation, and just how do you guys end up moving things? Because this isn't like a game where you've got like injuries and things like that. It's pretty much moving based on what a lot of these reporters are putting out there, and it's based on, for lack of a better term, speculation.
Because people are just reacting to information. And the bad thing about booking the draft, Greg, is that some people have the right information and we don't. Remember Bo Nix last year. That got out. He was going to Denver. Well, his draft position was 32.5 with us. So, we took quite a sting on that. But the limits are much, much smaller, as you know, Greg. Take 500 to the max, and you're going to move more aggressively than you would with the game, because you never know if you're going to get action on the other side.
Yep, absolutely. The NFL draft is one of the most unique things to be able to bet all season long, because you're not necessarily gauging how many points someone's going to score or anything like that. You're basing it on someone's opinion, and that opinion for many of these teams can be very, very different. It just takes one team to be able to love you, and we found that out when Tim Tebow went in the first round a few years ago. As Mike Palm, he does such a tremendous job over here at Circa, over here at VSiN, and so much more. Joining me right here on Cashing Out on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network. And if you do want to bet smarter this year, be sure to become a VSiN Pro. You're able to do so all the way through August 1st for just $59. That's 33% off the monthly price. That gives you everything that we're doing, our daily recap of the plays made by our VSiN shows and guests, exclusive betting splits from right here at Circa, along DraftKings, 24/7 live replays, and so much more. That's over at vsin.com/subscribe. And Mike, I know that you're a man that absolutely loves hockey, and we saw some tremendous action out there on the ice on Saturday, including the battle for Ontario going to a game number 5 as Ottawa was able to win in overtime. They were able to stave off of elimination. And do want to get just some of your thoughts on what we've seen in terms of these Stanley Cup playoffs here in the first week plus, because I do think that the action has been very interesting, and we've been seeing out there in the West just a lot of really good series in general.
Well, if you take the theory of teams that are in desperation and must-win situations, you'd be doing pretty well. Last night was a must-win for New Jersey. They came through and picked up the victory at home in overtime. Tampa Bay was a must-win situation on the road in Florida today. They couldn't go down 3-0. They played their best game of the series by far. Our own Golden Knights, I thought, was a must-win today. You can't go down 3-1 to this team. The top line did a much better job on the Wild top line. In fact, the Minnesota third and fourth lines that kept them in the game, but the Knights went in overtime. And then last night, desperation for Edmonton, not wanting to go down 3-0 to the Kings. And, they got it done in a seesaw, wildly entertaining game, even making the goalie change to go to Picard. Hopefully that would spark them. So those spots where you say these are must-wins or the series essentially over for teams have all come out on that side of the betting ledger.
Yeah, but I think that's very important that you point that out as well, because even if you take a look at the Ottawa Senators, they would have been done had they not won here tonight as well. So I think that's a great angle to be able to take a look at. And we've got a few of those situations that are going to be coming up on Sunday as well. As on Sunday, we've got ourselves some tremendous series that are going to be going down. And in terms of what you're going to be taking a look at in terms of the slate, is there anything in particular that does catch your eye? Because I do think that in terms of that Kings versus Edmonton Oilers series, I think that one's a very intriguing one, with the Oilers being a small favorite, and as we know, they're currently at home down 2-1 in the series, and I would say that's very much a must-win for the Edmonton Oilers.
It is. I'm going to give you a game that you might not think is a must-win, but I think it's more important than the public perception. I think Winnipeg needs to win this Game 4 on the road in St. Louis, the opening game tomorrow of the quadruple header. And here's the reason, Greg. If they lose to St. Louis and have to go back to Winnipeg on Tuesday night, I assume it is, think of all the pressure. It's Wednesday, actually. Think of all the pressure that's going to be on Connor Hellebuck in that Game 5 at home. That's going to be an awful spot for him. Remember his past playoff failures. He couldn't get it done in the final of the Four Nations face-off. So the weight of the world will be on his shoulders at home, and God forbid they fall behind. So I think if you're Winnipeg, this is a really important game. You don't want to go home and face the possibility of falling behind to the Blues like they did in Game 1 and a Game 5.
And what I think is very intriguing about that game as well, you're noticing the goal total is at 5.5, but that juice is all the way down to between minus 140 to minus 145. So they're going to charge you a very big premium on that. And I feel like that's been one of the most intriguing first-round series and one of the most competitive first-round series that we've had as well. Obviously, the Canadiens series, that has been a good one as well against Washington Capitals. But how have you taken a look at the way that the Winnipeg Jets have played? Because they actually scored the most points out there in the Western Conference, but still, it just felt like there was a few question marks coming in with them going into the postseason.
Well, it's Hellebuck. That's the whole thing, because of so many failures in the playoffs in years past. I mean, in Denver, they call him Five-a-Buck, Greg, because that's how many goals they average against them in the playoffs. And so it's a rare occasion. You mentioned they were the top scoring team. They scored the most goals, and they were third in goals against. Think about that. Teams that never happens that you're in the top three in both. You'd think they would be a prohibitive favorite, but remember, the Blues had that 12-game winning streak. They had like 4 teams between them and a wild card at one point, and made this huge charge to get in the playoffs. And they have one of the best coaches in the game in Jim Montgomery. So that's why the series has been more competitive than you would think a President's winner against a wild card would be.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun to be able to take a look at that series. And then, did you have anything with regards to this Washington Capitals and Montreal Canadiens series? Because, as we know, there was a little bit of a dust-up about 48 or so hours ago, and this, for me, has been a really fun series to see with the Canadiens and just the way that the home crowd has been able to come out for them. And then, obviously, you've got Alex Ovechkin, who he passes a record a few weeks ago, so you've got no shortage of headlines, and you've got no shortage of two cities that just absolutely love their teams in this series.
And there's no place like the Bell Center. I tell you, Greg, they should host every North American competition there. It's the best atmosphere in hockey. They haven't been in the playoffs for 3 years. I bet the Canadiens again at home as a small dog tomorrow. They're not afraid of this team. I think the Caps are a little bit of a paper tiger. And I think that whole quest for Ovechkin to break Gretzky's record took a lot out of this team, all the attention. And I give the advantage to the Canadiens when they're home. and they haven't blinked when they were in Washington either, forcing overtime and keeping these low-scoring games. So I think the Canadians will tie it up heading back to the nation's capital.
Yep, I think that is going to be a tremendous one as well. And right now, that's pretty close to a pick 'em. The Capitals are very slight, about -110, -115 or so favorite, but I think that one is going to be tremendous. And this is pretty much dealer's choice on this one, Mike. It could be a little bit of hockey. I know you mentioned that you were going to take a shot on the Montreal Canadiens, but just how you think that you're going to be betting for Sunday, whether that be baseball, NBA, NHL, just anything on the card for you?
I'm going to. I bet the Timberwolves pre-flop in the series at +185, and I'm going to continue to come back on it. I think they're a better team than the Lakers. I just think straight up they're a better team than the Lakers, and I didn't mind their formula of let LeBron go off. We're going to try to stop Luka. I think it works. I think they go up 3-1 tomorrow. I laid 2.5 again tomorrow. I'm not waiting or saying I already have a position or I want to hedge. I'm all in with them.
I absolutely love it. And with this Minnesota Timberwolves team, we saw what they were able to do last postseason as well. And Anthony Edwards, in my opinion, in Game 3, he looked like the best player out there on the court. That's even with Luka Doncic and LeBron James on the other side. So I like that position. And what I always love is getting you aboard, Mike. You do such great work, and it's always appreciated. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Craig. Great talking to you again.
Always good to be able to get Mike aboard. He is the maestro himself, does a great job on the NHL front, does a great job on the NBA front, and so much more. And every time we get him, we always take that opportunity. So big thanks to Mike for joining me right here on Cashing Out on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network. And coming up next, how about if we head from the hardwood and the ice on over to the diamond right here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
Out here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
We're back here on Cashing Out on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network. Was great to be joined by Mike Palm in the last segment. Talk a little hockey, talk a little bit about the wildness in terms of booking the NFL draft and so much more. And did want to let you guys in behind the curtain just a little bit there, because some of you are there in the northeast part of the country, and the way that the draft is booked out here in Nevada, the way that things are taken off the board about 24 hours before the draft starts, very different from how it is in the northeast part of the country. So it was great to be able to get his insights. A big thanks to Mike for joining me in the last segment. And how about if we now hit a little bit more baseball? Going to be going pretty baseball heavy for the rest of the show here, as we do have ourselves all 30 teams in action, and we don't just have 15 games on the card. We've got 16 games, as the New York Yankees and the Toronto Blue Jays got washed out on Saturday, which means that they've got a double dip on Sunday. So how about if we hit both of these games? I won't go through like every single player because that would be a little bit redundant, but that said, in terms of game number one, it's going to be Kevin Gausman against Max Fried, and then the game that gets added to the board is going to be the late game. That'd be the Chris Bassett versus Clark Schmidt start. So we will do that one second, and we'll go first things first with Gausman versus Fried, with right now the Yankees being about a +160 to, or I should say minus 175 to minus 185 favorite. It's the Blue Jays. They are the plus money underdog. They're between about +155, +164, and then that total in most places is an 8.5. This is starting to come down to 8, and we were seeing this prior to the game getting taken off the board on Saturday. The total in a lot of places was 8.5, but that actually opened up at a 9. Like, I actually bet that last night at a 9, and that gets peeled off the board. So a little bit disappointed there, but that said, if you can still get an 8.5, I still do think that there's some pretty solid value on the under for Kevin Gausman. He had a rough first 2 starts of the season where he wasn't getting a lot of strikeouts, 22 punch-outs in his last 3 starts. I've liked what I've seen out of him. For Gausman, always been a guy that's been able to give you some good swing and miss, and it's always been a guy that has had a little bit of bad luck, in my opinion. His fielding independent year in and year out is typically a little bit lower than the ERA, and for Max Fried, he has been tremendous here with the New York Yankees. 2 earned runs or fewer in every one of his starts since putting on the Yankees pinstripes. And I will say he gave up a few unearned runs in that start against the Milwaukee Brewers. I believe there were 5 errors behind him, so I'm not really going to hold him to that, but this is a Yankees lineup that's starting to come back to earth a little bit. They were very much, shall we say, overvalued towards the early part of the season because they scored the trillion runs that they did against the Milwaukee Brewers, and people thought that was going to be the norm, and you still have guys that are producing for the team. Aaron Judge is sitting above a 400 with 7 home runs, so he has been tremendous. Ben Rice has been able to give you nearly a 380 on base. He's hitting for some power, but the likes of an Anthony Volpe has fallen back to earth a little bit more, so you need a little bit more towards the bottom of the fold. Trent Grisham, by the way, having a nice renaissance season as well. And then on the flip side for the Toronto Blue Jays, just not a lot of power out of this team. Bottom 5 team in the big leagues in terms of home runs per game and home runs per at-bat. You've got Bo Bichette, who's doing a nice job of getting on base, but it's not supplying a lot of power. Vlad Guerrero Jr. finally got off the schneid of 0 home runs, but he still only has 3 home runs. But again, he's another one of those guys that's finding a way to be able to move the line, get on base. I expect a little bit more out of some of these younger guys like a Will Wagner, who they picked up at the trade deadline last season. And for the Toronto Blue Jays, this is a bullpen that's starting to grow on me a little bit. Like last year, they were terrible in the bullpen. It was Yimi Garcia and pretty much nobody else. Having Chad Green be able to give you some good innings has been solid. I know they've had a few guys hit the injured list, but all in all, they've been able to mix and match. You're probably going to utilize Uriel Rodriguez at some point in this double dip as he's able to give you multiple innings. He was like a 4-inning starter last season, so I think that's to their benefit. And for the New York Yankees, I am a Milwaukee Brewers fan, and now you know exactly why the Milwaukee Brewers weren't necessarily so sad to see Devin Williams walk in the offseason, because that has been not great, to say the least. I think that they've now restored Luke Weaver as a closer, and rightfully so, because he has been the best piece in that bullpen thus far. And for some of these guys like a Brent Hedrick, they've honestly been able to give you some good production. Tim Hill has been fine. You've got a guy, Nina Hamilton, who I always believe that he's got quite a bit of upside in that bullpen as well, but for the Blue Jays, not necessarily a lot of firepower. I think that both of these starters are going to be able to go out there, give you a good start, and I don't think that you're going to need to go into the bullpen too much, so that should leave them relatively rested for game number 2. So this is a circumstance where at the 8.5, I do like the under, but being able to get north of plus 160 on the Blue Jays, right now seeing as good as a plus 164 where I sit here at Circa, I'm going to be able to take a shot on the money line. Do feel like that's one a little bit too far. And then we've got the game number 2 between Clark Schmidt and Chris Bassett. Bassett has been taking teams hook, line, and sinker this year. A sub-2 ERA, a .149 fielding independent, north of 10 strikeouts per 9 innings, fewer than 2.5 walks per 9, and that was really his main kryptonite since coming over from Toronto. Maybe it's just me, and maybe that's the way that I watch Chris Bassett, and maybe it's the fact that I've actually seen him in person a few times. Like, it felt like every single baseball game I went to in person the last few years, Chris Bassett was pitching. I'm not even kidding when I say that. Like, I went to the LA Angels opening day game like 2 years ago, the last one for Shohei Ohtani. Guess who was pitching? You guessed it, Chris Bassett. So there's that. But it felt like the pitch clock really just took a lot out of him. It felt like he had a tough time adjusting to it. Now he's adjusted to it, and now he looks like that guy that we saw with the Mets and the A's. So he's been able to really kick it into gear. Meanwhile, for Clark Schmidt, he's about as average of a pitcher as it gets. He's had a rough first 2 starts of the season, posting up north of 70 ERA. I'm not going to make too much out of this small of a sample size. For his career, he posts up about a 4 ERA, about a 4 fielding independent, 9 strikeouts to 3 walks per 9 innings, a little bit over a home run allowed per 9 innings. He's not great. He's not terrible. Again, that should give the Yankees a little bit of an edge here, but with the way that Chris Bassett is pitching, I'm right now seeing out there like a plus 140. I'm seeing a plus 135. I'm going to be willing to take a shot on that plus money line. I do think that both of these bullpens are going to be a little bit expended in game number 1, but also take a look at this spot with Bassett pitching. I think that he's going to give you some length, so I also set my total at 8.7. I'm going to be in on this total under as well, and the NBA playoffs, they are certainly heating up, and VSiN is breaking down all the action. You want to find everything that we've got here over on the VSiN Watch app. We've got you covered from everything from series odds to matchup breakdowns and so much more. Our NBA handicappers, I know that John Von Tobel is our senior NBA handicapper. He does a tremendous job on this front and so much more. We've got you covered here on the VSiN Watch app, as it is Greg Hoops Peterson right here on Cashing Out on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network. And we just broke down the Yankees, so how about if we break down their arch nemesis, the Boston Red Sox, as they're on the road. They're facing off against the Cleveland Guardians. Logan Allen is going to be going for Cleveland, and Brian Bayo goes for Boston. So it is a Bayo day, and for the Red Sox, they're a very, very slim underdog, anywhere between even money to minus 105. Meanwhile, about minus 109, minus 115, that number on the Guardians. This open up in a lot of places at 7.5. We're still seeing some 7.5s out there. It's pretty much a 50-50 split. Some places have 7.5 with the juice on the over. Some places have 8 with the juice on the under, and personally, I do think that you're going to get a higher scoring game. I'm going to be in on this total over. I was able to snag a 7.5 a little bit before, and even at an 8, I'd be taking a look at the over, as you should be able to get even juice there. And I do feel like the Guardians should be a bit more of a sizable favorite. For Brian Bale, first start of the season, not too bad. Gives up 1 run over the course of 5 innings, but he walked 3, and that 1 run that he gave up was a solo home run. Screams regression to me. And for Brian Bale, throughout his career, he struggled a little bit more on the road rather than at home, despite the fact that his ballpark in Fenway is one of the best hitters havens that you're going to find in all of baseball. So do have some big time concerns there. Bale's never necessarily been a super duper power pitcher, and for the Cleveland Guardians, well, the bottom of the lineup with some of these guys like a Daniel Schneemann, Brian Rocchio, the entirety of the catcher spot with Bo Naylor, Austin Hedges, what have you, it leaves a little bit of something to be desired. Top half of the lineup has been great. Steven Kwan, north of 380 on base. He's been able to really supply some boom this year with 4+ homers. You've had Jose Ramirez be a little bit up and down, but you know that he's one of the most fearsome hitters in all baseball, still giving you 5 bombs, still doing a nice job of being move the line, get on base, and I do think that you're going to get a little bit more moving forward out of Carlos Santana as well, who's had a rough start to the season. Meanwhile, on the flip side for the Boston Red Sox, Trevor Story along with Alex Bregman have been really good to start the season, and typically Alex Bregman starts out the year horribly, so that's a nice added bonus for the Boston Red Sox. And for Trevor Story, just last few seasons have been dealing with injuries. Him being back out there in the lineup is very big. And Rafael Devers, it's been a less than savory start to the season for him. Was able to get home run number 3 in game number 1 of the double dip yesterday, and that's something that you want to keep in mind. For these two teams, they had to pitch 18 innings yesterday, and for the Cleveland Guardians, they very wisely had a good strategy in place where Kobe Allard actually filled the final 6 innings of the blow-up start from the guy in Nick Hazy, who was making his first career start. That was not great, to say the least, but Allard being able to fill those 6 innings, that means that you're going to have all hands on deck, because he had Emmanuel Clase, Tim Aaron, Hunter Gaddis, Cade Smith, all pitching game number 1, but they all went for 18 pitches or less, which means that they should conceivably be able to come back and be able to give you a good performance today. Jacob Junis, he's able to give you some good innings as well. And for the Boston Red Sox, you've got a guy in Garrett Woodlock that's able to give you multiple innings, but I don't trust in this bullpen. Like, you've got Aroldis Chapman as your closer, and you've got Greg Weisert as one of your main setup men. That's not a place where you want to be if you're this team. Justin Slayton has not necessarily been too great. I mean, Liam Hendricks is a great story, but at the same time, he's now 36 years old and pitching multiple years. That's a little bit less than savory as well. Justin Wilson, not a place where you want to be there either. So I do think that for the Cleveland Guardians, you've got a leg up here with Logan Allen, who he was not good last year, to say the least. He was walking too many guys. He was giving up right around 4 walks per 9 innings, but you knew that he always had some good stuff in you. You knew that he'd be able to give you a little bit of swing and miss, and he's put it together this year. 2.11 ERA now. It's closer to about a 3.54 fielding dependent, as he's actually had these fewest strikeouts per 9 innings through his career thus far this season, but he's keeping the ball in the yard, has allowed just 1 home run in 21 plus innings. This game being out there in Cleveland, I think bodes well for that. Do you think that in the end you're going to be able to get some runs on both sides? Semi-fill at an 8.3. I do like the over, but with the Guardians, set them more around about a -129, -130 favorite, so I do like them on the money line. And coming up next, we had a lot of American League action. How about if we go to the National League side of things right here on Cash It Out on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
Welcome back to Cashing Out here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
We're back here on Cashing Out on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network. We've got a ton of great action that's coming up on this Sunday. You've got the NBA playoffs, you've got the NHL playoffs, the NFL draft. That is finally concluded, but there's going to be no shortage of chatter on that front as well for the coming days and coming weeks as to what we're going to be getting on that front. And we have to, first things first, give a big thanks to our top selections here at VSiN. Everyone behind the scenes, they do such an excellent job. We've got ourselves a little bit of a name conundrum tonight because we've got one of our newer guys, John, who's doing an absolutely tremendous job for us. And that said, we've also got Johnny, who's the main producer of this show. They do a great job of keeping me in line and keeping me on the straight and narrow, which that is not an easy task, to say the least. So we very much appreciate them. If you're listening on SiriusXM, if you're listening on iHeartRadio, maybe you're listening after the fact, because every single hour of every single show here at VSiN, it is up on our VSiN Bets feed or over at VSiN.com/podcast. I know that Evan is doing a tremendous job with the audio and was rocking the new, I guess you call it, Vegas Vegas A's head as well. I love to see the passion right there, so you absolutely love that. Evan doing a good job of making sure that everything is crisp and clean there. And then this is one of the most difficult tasks here at the network, making myself look halfway presentable in a video/moving picture format. And for all of you guys that are watching on YouTube TV, just anywhere that you're getting VSiN, whether that be the Watch app, what have you, all the graphics that you're seeing, my face, I'm not going to say lovely or anything like that, but it is indeed a face. You've got Jarens doing an absolutely tremendous job on that front, along with Isaiah. So big thanks to everyone behind the scenes. They're the best team in the business, and because they're doing such a tremendous job, I have to try to get you guys some good picks here. So how about if we take a look at the National League side of things? And I think that this is a very intriguing game, as the Arizona Diamondbacks are currently a very slim home underdog against the Atlanta Braves, and I disagree with this. This is 959, 960 on the card, as it is going to be old Spencer Schwellenbach. That's a Midwest name if I've ever heard it. He's going to be going for the Atlanta Braves, and Brandon Pfaadt is on the bump for the Arizona Diamondbacks. Right now that total is 8.5, and with the Snakes, you're going to be getting them right around about even money to -105, -108 to -115, that number on the Atlanta Braves. And I felt like the Diamondbacks should have been more like a -125 or so favorite, so I'm in on them on the money line. I've just really liked what I've seen out of Brandon Pfaadt this season, and frankly, the last few seasons, I felt like he was a, shall we say, victim of some bad variance in terms of the just way things went down in general. He's a low walk guy. He gives up fewer than 2.5 walks per 9 innings. Does a pretty solid job of being able to keep the ball in the yard. His strikeout stuff is pretty solid as well. This year it's been a little bit down, but for Spencer Schwellenbach, his strikeout per 9 rate last year was about 9. This year it's been closer to 7.7. Fully recognize that it's a little bit of a small sample size, but you also have, for our guy in Spencer Schwellenbach, given up 9 runs, 8 of which have been earned in the last 2 starts. Meanwhile, for Brandon Pfaadt, he's coming into his own. He's allowed just 2 runs across his last 17 and 2/3 innings, and for the Arizona Diamondbacks, you've got a lineup that's very fearsome. How about number 1 in the big leagues in terms of runs per game? Now, I don't think that Eugenio Suarez is going to hit, 4 home runs like he did in the game on Saturday, which I find it to be very interesting. He's an all-or-nothing hitter that I believe that over half of his hits have flown over the fence this season, and when you have a 4-home-run game and your team loses, that's very fascinating, to say the least. But that's it for the Arizona Diamondbacks. Corbin Carroll, I just can't be convinced otherwise of this. He had to have been injured last year. Like, this is just a completely different guy than he was. Like, I still remember late in the 2023 season, he had like a subluxed shoulder when he slid into second base against some team. I forget who it was, but it was late in the summertime. I think that he was dealing with injuries from that, and now he's been able to come back, be fully healthy. He's hitting for a 300. He's been able to give you about 9 home runs. Love what I'm seeing there, but Pavin Smith is moving the line, hitting a 300. Josh Naylor is moving the line, hitting a 375. Even guys like Alec Thomas, Geraldo Perdomo, they're doing a good job of reaching base. And for the Atlanta Braves, the offense is starting to round into form. Marcell Ozuna has picked up right where he left off last season, a whopping 490 on base. He has been incredible. And for Sean Murphy, another guy in which I think half of his hits have flown over the fence. He's got 7 home runs thus far this season, but the guys at the bottom of the lineup, Michael Harris is starting to look a little bit better, but still only about a 275 on base. Eli White is not a guy that I have a lot of faith in. The entire catcher spot, with having Orlando Arcia currently being out, that's been a little bit less than savory for the Atlanta Braves. And with the bullpen, Aaron Bummer, well, he lives up to his name oftentimes for the team. I actually really like the fact that they picked up Spencer Blewett, who he pitched in the game yesterday. He's a very underrated arm for the team, but they had to go through Desmond Hernandez yesterday, guys like this. And for the Arizona Diamondbacks, the fact that you do have AJ Puck currently out of the fold, that's relatively rough for them. They did have to use the likes of Jalen Beeks, Justin Martinez yesterday as well, so a lot of their better bullpen pieces are down, but that said, you still have Shelby Miller, who's been able to give you a few good innings as well. So I do think that for the Diamondbacks, they get a rock solid start here out of Brandon Pfaadt, and I do think that this is going to be a higher scoring game. Yesterday's game went into extra innings, which means that both of these bullpens are going to be a little bit more expended. I do think that both of these guys experienced just a touch of regression. So I did set my total at 8.7 here at the 8.5. I do like the over, and I do like that Diamondbacks money line. And what else I love is the fact that the most exciting 2 minutes of sports that is going to be coming into our lives within the next few days. We have you covered right here at VSiN on it all. You're able to get expert picks, betting strategies, and everything that you need for the Kentucky Derby. And you're able to find all of our Derby coverage on the VSiN Watch app, as it is cashing out with myself, Greg Hoops Peterson, right here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network. And I do think that we've got ourselves this good one for Sunday, as well as how about if we take a look at a pair of teams that played a double dip on Saturday, and now they look to turn it forward to Sunday. This is 9:67, 9:68 on the card as the Detroit Tigers play us the Baltimore Orioles. Dean Kramer is on the bump for Baltimore, and Tariq Skubal goes for the Tigers. And right now, if you're looking at that Tigers run line, you're going to be finding it as good as a plus 110. I'm actually finding a plus 115 out there as well for the Orioles. If you're looking at them on the money line, you're going to be able to get right in that neighborhood about a plus 160, plus 170, and total on this game is 7.5. I do like the over in this spot, and it's just a big giant fade of Dean Kramer. Dean Kramer has been getting 6.5 strikeouts per 9 innings, and he's been banged around like a human pinata this year. North of a 6 ERA, guy is giving up about 2.5 home runs per 9 innings, and for the Tigers last season, they were able to make the playoffs because they were able to do their bullpen madness sort of thing. They were just doing a good job of mixing and matching in terms of their various arms. This year, the offense has been much better. Spencer Torkelson giving north of 350 on base with 5+ home runs. Kerry Carpenter has been very good at the plate. Javi Baez is more useful than a poopy-flavored lollipop this year, and if you're the Tigers, that's great news because he was terrible last year, so that's been able to help them out a little bit. So the Detroit Tigers, really 1 through 9, aside from maybe a little bit out of Cole Keith, these guys have been pretty rock solid, and for the Baltimore Orioles, this is still a relatively solid offense, but you've had a lot of your star players not step up. It's been more of the, shall we say, unsung heroes that have actually been able to have the Orioles firing all the cylinders with regards to their offense. Ryan O'Hearn is giving you north of a 375 on base. Cedric Mullins is having a turn back the clock year. North of a 400 on base. He's had 5+ home runs this season, but Adley Rushman, Gunnar Henderson, Ramon Laureano, Heston Kierstead, Ryan Mountcastle, all guys hitting at 220 or lower. Pretty sure that all these guys, aside from Rushman, have a sub 300 on base, not getting a lot of power there. Meanwhile, Ramon Urias is having himself a nice year where he's been belting out the deep ball and he's been hitting north of 300. And then for the Baltimore Orioles, they did have to expend a lot of bullpen pieces in the double dip on Saturday, so that's a big issue for them, and you don't necessarily have a lot of great guys to take a look at. And Charlie Morton only lasting 3 2/3 innings. I mean, I think that they should be throwing out there a pitching machine instead of Charlie Morton at this point, but that said, you've got Ynier Cano, Felix Bautista. That's a really nice 8th and 9th inning duo. How do you get to them, though? Because you're having to utilize guys like Brian Baker. The opener in Keegan Aiken is not going to be available for this game as well because he threw north of 30 pitches yesterday as well, so a little bit of a less than savory situation. Meanwhile, for the Tigers, they did have to use up their long guy in Brant Herter on Saturday, but that said, you've got a bunch of guys like a Tommy Canley, Tyler Holton, Will Vest, guys like this, and they've been a top 3 bullpen in terms of VRA since the All-Star break in the 2024 campaign. They've got more depth in this bullpen, and then you've got, a guy by the name of Tariq Skubal has given up 2 runs over his last 3 starts, and by the way, he won the Cy Young Award last season, so I do think that the Tigers in good shape to be able to win this game by multiple runs. Semi-total at 7.7. I think that the Orioles can crank out a few runs on Skubal, but I think that Dean Kramer is going to get hit relatively hard in this one, so I like that Tigers run line, and I do like this total over. How about if we look at one of the biggest disappointments in all of baseball, and resides out there in the Central as well. This is 971, 972 on the betting board. The Minnesota Twins play us the LA Angels. Jose Soriano is on the bump for the Angels, and you've got Joe Ryan on the bump for the Twins. Twins are between about a -142 to a -155 favorite. Neighborhood plus 130 to plus 135, that number on Los Angeles. Total on this game, it is 7.5, and I'm going to be diving in on the over. Semi-total at 8.4. For the LA Angels, it's been an all-or-nothing offense for the team, as you've got a lot of guys that have hit 5+ home runs thus far this season. You've got Mike Trout, who, the fact that he's hitting below the Mendoza line of 200, I don't know how to explain that, but he's been able to give you those home runs. Kyron Paris has been able to give you a few bombs as well, so these guys have been very intriguing. You've had also a guy in Ori Soler give you 4 home runs. He's giving you a little bit in terms of on base, but it's been all or nothing. Logan O'Hoppe has been the main guy that's moved the line for them. But for the Minnesota Twins, all of a sudden it feels like they're starting to find a little bit of offense. You've had Carlos Correa be absolutely terrible this season, and Royce Lewis is back on the injured list, but getting back Brooks Lee, I think, is pretty solid. And for Joe Ryan, has always been significantly better at home rather than on the road. At home, Joe Ryan gives up less than 1 home run per 9 innings. On the road, he gives up closer to 1.4 home runs per 9 innings. And Jose Soriano, not necessarily too much of a swing and miss guy, has done a good job throughout his career of being able to keep the ball in the yard, but that's really the only thing that he does well. Last year, he gave up north of 3 walks per 9 innings, so I do have my concerns there. This is an Angels bullpen that is still down Ben Joyce as well. He's one of their better relief pieces, and for the Twins, neither here nor there on that bullpen, so semi-total a little bit north of 8. I do like the over, and with the Minnesota Twins, I'd be willing to lay up to about a -148 on that money line. And coming up next, I'll give you guys everything that I'm looking at on the card for Sunday right here on Cashing Out on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
out here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
We're back here for the final segment of the night, right here on Cashing Out on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network. If you're listening live to Cashing Out, well, you're going to be getting a replay of this fine program. Meanwhile, if you're listening to the replay, 7 o'clock a.m. Pacific, 10 o'clock a.m. Eastern, it is a morning line. Tim Murray and company doing an absolutely tremendous job there. So my objective is very clear here. Get you guys to the morning line safely, hopefully with a little bit more money in pocket, and try to be able to find some winners on the card for you. Now, in terms of betting on the NBA playoffs, I do a lot more in-game. Now, I do think that we've got a very interesting card that's going to be going down on Sunday because I am someone from the great state of Wisconsin. I have absolutely no faith whatsoever in the Milwaukee Bucks being able to duplicate what they did a few nights ago with Gary Trent getting his first start since January and all of a sudden becoming like some sort of sniper for the team. I don't think that that's going to be happening once again. And you do have a total between 226 and 226.5. I think that that'll be a very interesting game to be able to gauge because I think that very early on, you know whether this game is going to be going over or this game is going to be going under. I did this last week when I was filling in on the live betting show. I do think that you can find yourself some better value when you did take a look at things in game. Like even when I was on there last week, it was game one between the Warriors and the Houston Rockets. I was able to find the Warriors at a plus 165 on the money line rather than taking more of an even money shot prior to the game. Now, I had to take that shot early. I had to take that in the first quarter, but you're always, in my opinion, able to find a better number in game. And if you don't, you just don't. And sometimes that's going to happen to you, but I would be taking a look at something in-game with regards to that total. If it's a slog to start out with, it's probably going to be a slog to end. If it starts out fast, it's probably going to remain fast. That's the way that I take a look at that one. And then I do like what Mike Palm was putting down about 45 or so minutes ago in terms of this Lakers versus Minnesota Timberwolves game. Timberwolves between 2.5 to 3-point favorites. I just feel like the year for the Lakers is going to be next year. Now, I feel like this has been a tremendous year for the LA Lakers because they were hardly going to make the playing game, and you swapped out an off-injured Anthony Davis for Luka Doncic. You pretty much reset your franchise. Like, I know that this has been a little bit of chatter out there on sports radio that's a little bit more mainstream. Like, how do you gauge the Lakers season if they don't win this series? I think that if you're LeBron James, you feel very disappointed because you've only got a few bites at the apple. But if you're the LA Lakers, this season's already been a success for you, in my opinion. But obviously, they do want to do a better job here. But again, with the LA Lakers, the fact that they didn't have that Mark Williams trade come through, I think that that's going to hurt them in this game with having the likes of Rudy Gobert and company. On the flip side, for the Minnesota Timberwolves, I think that they're going to be able to do a nice job down low. I like what Naz Reid is able to bring to the table for this team as well. And then Anthony Edwards, again, I said this when Mike was on, and I'm going to say it once again. He looked like the best player out there on the floor in that game number 3 in that closeout spot. So I do think that that is big for the Minnesota Timberwolves. If I had to play this right now, I would be willing to lay that number. But again, we'll be looking for something a little bit more juicy in game if I'm able to find it. So that's the way that we're going to be playing that. And how about if we do take a look at a little bit more baseball, as that's a bit more of my bread and butter, and all of our best bets here at VSiN. It is brought to you by GBank. GBank is the official bank of VSiN, and if you sign up for a new GBank Visa signature card now, you're able to get up to a $750 bonus. As first things first, if you spend $1,000 on eligible purchases within the first 90 days of opening your account, you're able to receive a $250 bonus, but they're up in the ante even further with a $500 bonus for those that spend $50,000 on gaming and sports app loads within the first 30 days of opening an account. That gives you a grand total of perhaps a $750 bonus. Apply now over at vsin.com/gbank. That is vsin.com/gbank. This is subject to credit approval, and terms and conditions do apply. As we are back here on Cashing Out with myself, Greg Gibbs Peterson, on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network. And how about if we give you guys a game that I've yet to hit? And I do think that this is going to be an interesting one. You got the Walker Texas Rangers going up against the San Francisco Giants. It's Jordan Hicks going up against Jack Leiter. Total on this game is 8, and with the Giants, they're between about -125 to -130 favorites. Wouldn't want to really go past a -125. I'd be willing to lay up to a -125 in this spot, but I'm looking at this total over. Now, with the Texas Rangers, they have played just 8 overs and 19 unders thus far this season. That is the highest under rate in all of baseball, but that said, I do think that you're going to be able to find a little bit more offense in this game, and I do think that for the Texas Rangers, it's going to be a little bit rough for them in terms of their pitching staff because they've obviously been able to do a great job with regards to all those unders, and right now, despite the fact that they're averaging fewer than 4 runs per game, they have been that top team in the AL West thus far. I have fears with this bullpen, though. Like, Mark Church has seen meaningful innings for this unit. You've been having a just cavalcade of different guys like Luke Jackson and company having to come in and hold down the fort for them. And for the Texas Rangers, when you're relying upon someone like a Robert Garcia in clutch spots, that's not necessarily where you want to be. And for the San Francisco Giants, I'm lukewarm on this bullpen, I think is the best way of putting it. Like, Emilio Duvall's looking a little bit better this year. And then you've got the likes of Eric Miller, Tyler Rogers, Ryan Walker. These are solid pieces, but they're not necessarily amazing pieces. But for the Giants, what I really like is the fact that you've got Jung-Ho Lee out there. Jung-Ho Lee, who comes over from the KBO. I still remember in the 2020 season, the KBO play that he and the Kiwoom Heroes had was really able to get me through the pandemic. So thank you, Jung-Ho Lee, for your service. But that said, he's been hitting north of 300. He's been able to give you 3+ home runs. He's been able to do a nice job hitting for average, hitting for power. Good glove out there in the outfield. Willie Adames is, by the way, giving you a big giant nothing burger for the San Francisco Giants. Right now, hitting at the Mendoza line of 200 with only 1 home run. Granted, he has been able to drive in a few runs, but it's been a little bit slow going for him. And Lamont Wade Jr., not getting on base right now, to say the least, but you've had Matt Chapman being able to move the line. Tyler Fitzgerald is dealing with a little bit of injury, but Mike Yastrzemski has had a nice season along with Wilmer Flores, like what these guys are able to bring to the table. And for the Texas Rangers, they are dealing with that Corey Seager injury, and I think that that's very big for them, but they get back Wyatt Langford, who's been able to give you 5+ home runs. He's legitimately been the best hitter for the team this season, and I don't think that these guys are going to have magnificent seasons, but you've got Marcus Semien, Jake Berger, along with Jock Peterson, who are all hitting below the Mendoza line of 200. And for Jock Peterson, he had that like 0 for 40 some odd slump in which they should have ruled that an error on that first hit that he got to be able to break the slump. I'm sorry, but an error is an error, and that was an error. But that said, for Jock Peterson, I do think that he's going to be better than what he's been able to show this year with the sub 100 batting average. Like, Jock Peterson last year was actually very reliable in terms of moving line for the Arizona Diamondbacks. I feel like it's been a little bit of bad cluster luck. Now, Adolis Garcia is not necessarily the world's greatest at being a move line, but I do think that, with that said, going up against a guy in Jordan Nix has been awful this year. 3+ runs allowed in each out of his last 4 starts, 5+ runs allowed in each out of his last 3. And for Jordan Nix, he really doesn't give you a lot of strikeouts. He walks quite a few guys. He gives up a lot of hard contact. Not a lot of redeeming qualities there. And for Jack Leiter, first 2 starts of the season prior to going on the injured list was looking relatively rock solid. Now he's having to come off the injured list, and now he's having to try to revamp it back up. His strikeout stuff is solid, but it's not necessarily amazing. At this point, I think that he gets lit up for some runs, and that could cause for some bullpen expenditure of the Rangers. So I'm liking that over, and with the Giants, if I can find like a -126, -125 or so, I'm going to be willing to dive in on the money line. I do like myself a lot of pick'em games that are going to be happening on Sunday in Major League Baseball / a few money line underdogs. I went through this one a little bit before, but I'm liking myself some Chris with a K Bubich going up against the Houston Astros with the Kansas City Royals. Right now, you're finding them in that neighborhood about a +115, +120 underdog. I feel like they should be more like a -109 favorite in this one. Hunter Brown, Chris with a K Bubich, both come in with a sub-2 ERA. I do think that there's a little bit of regression to be had here, and keep in mind, early on during the baseball season, if you're looking at like ERAs with pitchers, what have you, and I know that Jensen Lewis has spoke very well about this in terms of VSiN by the book Monday through Friday. You always want to tune in to he and Dave Ross. They do an incredible job, but Jensen has mentioned, you know what, one bad appearance, one bad outing, if you're a pitcher, that completely jacks up your ERA, throws these numbers out of whack. I think that that's very true here, and you're going to see a lot of progression and regression over the next few weeks. I'm banking on, shall we say, negativity for both of these guys with a sub 150 ERA, so I'm looking at this little 7.5. I do like the over, and I do like the Royals on the money line. Mentioned this one in passing a few minutes ago. Tigers on the run line and the over there. Big giant fade of Dean Kramer. And then in terms of Sunday Night Baseball, I'm going to continue my fade of Aaron Nola. Right now, you're finding the Cubs right around about even money or so. And this total in terms of the openers is coming out at an 8. And wind seems like it's going to be blowing out just a little bit. It's going to be sort of directional. It's going to be sort of blowing out a little bit. So it's not really going to hurt these pitchers. It's not really going to help these pitchers, but Aaron Nola has been awful this year. He's got north of a 6 ERA. I recognize that if you look at the fielding independent numbers, he's been a little bit better, as he's still getting 10 strikeouts per 9 innings, but he's given up ding-dongs left and right, north of a home run and a half per 9 innings, and he's always been a different pitcher away from home rather than at home. For his entire career, north of a decade long, he has got an ERA that's darn near a full point higher when he's on the road rather than at home. Now, James Taillon, if you look at the raw numbers, north of a 4.5 ERA, not some sort of strikeout artist or anything like that. That said, he's given up 3 earned runs or fewer, and each of his last 4 starts. It's a Phillies team that's pretty solid at moving the line. Bryce Harper, along with Kyle Schwarber, have been having themselves some pretty nice seasons, and now you've got guys like Alec Boehm starting to pick it up, but this is a Cubs team that's averaging north of 6 runs per game. Kyle Tucker has been an amazing ad for them. Seiya Suzuki, I see hitting 5+ home runs and moving the line. Even the guys like Pete Armstrong, Miguel Amaya have been rock solid, so I like that over, and I do like the Cubs on the money line there. What else I love is what we've all got coming up here on VSiN on Sunday, a rock solid lineup. It's going to be getting started with the weekend morning line at 10 o'clock a.m. Eastern, 7 o'clock a.m. Pacific. Until then, you're going to get a replay of this fine program, but it all gets started there, and then you've got Live Bet Sunday, Ready, Set, Bet as well, so we've got you guys set for a tremendous Sunday of sports right here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.